Let's create this text animation in Cavalry, starting from level 1, moving up to level 5. To start, make sure that the frame rate is set to 60, and then select your text animation and hit this button to add the auto animate. Now also make sure that the end frame of this animation is set to 60. Now you'll see level 1 complete, and we can move on to level 2, which is going to make it look like this. To do that, go ahead and select your auto animate layer, and you can see right now it looks all over the place. So let's change a few things. First of all, we can go ahead and change the angle here to make it be from the bottom and up, and you can just rotate it 180 degrees like so. Next, we can see that it's moving very far, so let's change the distance to 100. And now you'll see it moves only a bit up. You also have the option to change the level mode to be words instead, so that they move in each word by themselves. Now finally, for this step, we can also change the timing mode to be normal instead of random, so they move from left to right like so. And now we can move on to level 3, which is going to make it look much more smooth. To do this, we're going to go ahead and select this progress right here, these keyframes, and then go into the graph editor. And here you'll see this easing that's right now is completely linear, and we want something more natural. So select all keyframes, then right click, hit key interpolation, and then Bezier. Then we can select all of the keyframes, and while holding shift, you can drag on these handles to make them more natural like so. And this easing you can just play around with until you find something you like. You can, for example, set it like this to have a more explosive animation. But for this one, I found that by dragging out the top handle, the right handle, making sure that only the handle is selected, to somewhere around frame 15, and then selecting the bottom handle here and then dragging that out to be around frame 5, and then maybe up to this point at 40% or something, and we'll get this animation, which looks quite nice. And we can now move on to level 4. Level 4 is going to add some gradients, so let's go into the fill of the text animation, and you'll see that right now it's just a simple solid color. So right click on the shaders, and then we can add a gradient shader. Right now it looks a little weird, so let's try and rotate it by going into this layer, and then we can go ahead and change the rotation to be 90 degrees instead of 0. Now that looks good, but the bottom color could be a little lighter. So let's go ahead and select that left color on this gradient here and select it, and then change the hex code to be something more light. Like in this case, we can select AD, AD, AD. And once that's selected, you'll see it looks almost perfect, but we can make this transition from the dark to the light color a little smoother by changing the scale up to something like 1.5. And before moving on, we can also see we can change this alpha to 0 if you don't want the gradient on. Now that's it for level 4, and we can move on to level 5, which is going to add some blur. And to do that, we need to select the text animation, then go into filters here, and let's add a simple fast blur. Now by default, this is just going to add a blur permanently. What we want instead is to have it be blurry in the beginning, but then sort of focus towards the end of the animation. Now to do that, we can drive that through the progress so that 100 equals 0 blur. How do we do that? We need to go into the fast blur and take a look at this. These values control the amount of blur, and we don't really need any directional blur like changing one of them individually. So let's just connect one to the other, and now we only have to work with the X value. Then we can see we want this X value to be somewhat controlled by the progress. So let's link those two up like so. And while it's not really working yet, you can see that the progress is controlling the amount of blur, so that 100% is equal to 100 amount of blur. To fix this, we can go ahead and add an expression to the amount. And let's go ahead and set that to 20, meaning the starting blur amount. Subtract that by 0.2 times the value. This means that the blur will start at 20, and then as the value gets larger, i.e. the progress, it's going to subtract more and more and more until there's no blur left at 100% because we also multiply it by 0.2. And now you got the system set up, and you can change the string however you want, and it will update live, and everything just works very nicely. You can also change the level mode to characters if you want them separately moving, or you can change the animation offset so there's a higher delay, and you can also change the distance of the drift here, as well as you can also change the angle to maybe be 270 so it goes in from the side. If you enjoyed this video, you can try watching this one next, and you can also support the channel by buying me a coffee in the link below.